Now it's time for RTB 101, where we discuss practical questions to help equip you to share your faith more effectively. And here to help me talk about alien encounters today is philosopher and theologian Kenneth Samples. Welcome, Ken.
Hi.
Always good to have you here. This is one of the more unusual topics that you're an expert in. But your classic book came out, I think, about almost 20 years ago now. Are we
2002, I think?
Yeah, so we're getting up there. Lights in the Sky and Little Green Men, that you co-authored with Hugh Ross and Mark Clark on this issue. And one of your chapters in there looks at this issue of contactee experiences.
Yes.
People might have heard the phraseology of encounters of the third kind.
Yeah.
This is where people actually have almost like real literal encounters with aliens. So let's talk about that, because some people might think that's completely not even on the table.
Yeah, you have what I would describe as kind of three UFO scenarios. You have people who are abducted, where they're actually captured, go through maybe an excruciating physical exam, and maybe later have reoccurring psychological trauma. Contactee movement is a little different in the sense that this is more rooted in kind of a religious element, where people get messages from aliens from outer space. This has a deep connection to the occult, to spiritism. The precursors to the contactee movement would see aliens within seances. And then you kind of have the broader category of UFO cults. So you have the abduction, which is almost always negative, the contactee, which is almost always spiritual and occultic, and then the religious element goes even further in religion and various ideas.
Well, that's very helpful. So there's kind of three different categories of these encounters. Now, in your book with Dr. Ross and Dr. Clark, you guys kind of lay out a general framework for understanding what we might call UFO experiences and this sort of thing. Maybe you can give us kind of a thumbnail of what that is.
Yeah, I think it's important to maybe think of three explanatory models, if you will. One of them would be what I would call the misidentified theory. That's where UFOs are not actual UFO beings, but the phenomenon is described as a misidentification of natural phenomena or human phenomena, aircrafts, whatever it may be. So the essential explanation is there's a deep misidentification. These aren't real UFO beings.
Natural explanation.
There are natural explanations, either psychological or phenomenological, if you will. A second interpretation is that these are extraterrestrial beings. These are real UFO beings. They are traveling from various parts in other galaxies, other parts of the universe. They have metallic crafts or whatever the construction of them is. So it would be an extraterrestrial. They are beings out in our universe outside of our galaxy, maybe.
Okay.
A third one, and of course this is kind of where we move to, it would be what I would call the ultra-dimensional or extra-dimensional explanation, that there is a percentage, and we conclude the small percentage, but there are phenomena of UFO realities that are really not from this dimension. From a theological, spiritual perspective, we would see these as being potentially demonic. So three categories of interpretation or explanation.
So when we think about these extra-dimensional experiences, that's a small percentage of the experiences that people have. Most of them, your theory is that most of them have natural explanations, but there's a small percentage that don't seem to have a natural explanation.
That's exactly right. We would argue that maybe 99% of UFO experiences, sightings, encounters could be explained naturally. Maybe less than 1% cannot. And some of those, many of those, have seemingly connections to an occult, spiritualistic point of view.
I'm wondering if there's any connection between these abduction experiences that people have and what you see as these kind of possibly demonic experiences with UFOs. Like, is that some of the data that supports that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair-minded to say that anybody who has, or the vast majority of people who have UFO experiences, it is characterized similar to an occult type of experience. And very often it tends to be negative in terms, sometimes physically, often emotionally. And so the occult runs through the UFO phenomenon.
So the kind of the lasting impact of these abduction experiences can be quite traumatic and negative.
Very negative. Some people are deeply troubled. They have kind of post-traumatic stress type of experiences. Many times they are treated psychologically, or they become very interested in religion, but it's usually kind of a spiritism, a new age, occult, which from a Christian point of view would be very negative.
So for a non-Christian, if we're talking to non-Christians about these issues, could this almost be evidence of something beyond our universe? That how would we talk about this to our non-Christian friends?
Well, I know recently in the news there were naval aviators who were seeing what appear to be UFOs, and they described them as exhibiting characteristics that would have killed a human pilot. That is, the physics that they were undergoing, the gyrations or whatever it would have killed physical human beings. This is one of the things that has led astronomers, others, to say there's something happening here, but it doesn't seem to fit with, the scientific understanding of physics. It seems more like a extra-dimensional or spiritual type of experience. And I think in a cautious, careful way, we can say that part of this phenomenon maybe is best explained as some kind of spiritual reality.
Very good. I'm sure people are going to be intrigued, so I want to encourage them to check out the book Lights in the Sky and Little Green Men.